The breaking point. The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the void between stars, a massive structure built from materials harvested from dead worlds. It was neutral ground, a place where the 100 species of the Galactic Federation gathered to discuss matters that affected trillions of lives. The hall had stood for 8,000 years, a monument to peace and order in a chaotic universe. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the human delegation section, her hands gripping the cold metal railing. She was 47 years old, with dark hair pulled back severely and eyes that had seen too much grief in recent weeks. Around her, the representatives of 100 worlds whispered and laughed, conducting business as they always had. None of them seemed to care about the reason she had requested this emergency session. The human section was small, tucked away in a corner where the lighting barely reached. It had been this way since humanity joined the Federation 75 years ago. Humans were newcomers, a young species that had only recently figured out faster-than-light travel. The older races treated them with polite condescension at best, and open contempt at worst. Elena looked up at the central platform where the Galactic Council sat. 5 species ruled the Federation, each commanding vast territories and wielding power that could reshape worlds. The Chrythian Empire controlled the largest military force, their reptilian warriors feared across 1,000 systems. The Traders Consortium managed all commerce, their tentacled forms hiding brilliant economic minds. The Vex Unity spoke with one voice through their hive consciousness. The Ancient Observers recorded history and judged disputes with cold logic. The Stellar Assembly represented the democratic ideals of dozens of peaceful civilizations. Together, they had maintained order for millennia. Together, they had just allowed the murder of 800,000 humans. The chime sounded, calling the assembly to order. High Chancellor Vren of the Chrythian Empire rose from his seat. He was massive, his scales gleaming like polished emeralds, his eyes like molten gold. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall with the weight of authority. The human delegation has called this emergency session. Ambassador Vasquez, you have the floor. Elena stepped forward. Every eye in the hall turned toward her. She felt their judgment, their dismissal. To them, she was a representative of a species that barely mattered. She activated the holographic display. The images appeared in the center of the hall, three-dimensional and impossible to ignore. They showed a world called New Dawn, a human colony on the edge of Federation space. Green fields, small cities, children playing in parks. 2 million humans had called it home. Farmers, teachers, engineers, families building a future far from Earth. Then the images changed. Fire fell from the sky. Cities became craters. The green fields turned to ash. Bodies floated in the streets, burned beyond recognition. The footage was from automated surveillance systems that had kept recording even as everything died. The hall fell silent. 17 days ago, Elena said, her voice steady despite the pain in her chest, a Chrythian battle group entered the New Dawn system without warning. They did not hail our colony. They did not issue demands. They simply opened fire. She let the images continue. Escaped ships trying to flee, cut down by plasma fire. Shelters collapsing. A hospital burning with patients still inside. 800,000 civilians died in 4 hours. The Chrythian commander, General Thax, later claimed that New Dawn violated territorial agreements signed 200 years ago, before humans ever left Earth. He claimed our colony was illegal. Elena looked directly at High Chancellor Vren. We have checked those agreements. New Dawn was established in unclaimed space, verified by 3 independent surveys conducted by Federation officials. The Chrythian Empire filed their territorial claim 3 months after our colony was built. They changed the records. They lied. And then they murdered 800,000 of my people. The murmur that ran through the hall was not one of outrage. It was discomfort, the sound of beings who wanted this problem to disappear. High Chancellor Vren did not look troubled. The Chrythian Empire's territorial claims have been reviewed by the Council. We find them legitimate. Your colony was established in violation of established boundaries. You changed those boundaries after we arrived, Elena said, her voice rising. The matter has been decided, interrupted Scholar Prime Kalen of the Ancient Observers. The crystalline being's voice chimed like breaking glass. The Council has reviewed all evidence. The Crithian claim is recognized under Federation law. Elena felt something break inside her. 800,000 people. Children. Families. And you call their murder legal? The Crithian Empire regrets the loss of life, High Chancellor Vren said. His voice held no regret at all. As compensation, we offer 50,000 Federation credits. Additionally, all human colonies within 5 light-years of Crithian territory must be relocated within 2 standard years. 50,000 credits. Elena did not trust herself to speak. That amount would not buy a single cargo vessel. It was an insult layered on top of murder. And if we refuse, she asked quietly. Then you will be in violation of Federation law, said Representative Morn of the Stellar Assembly. The bird-like creature's feathers ruffled with irritation. Ambassador Vasquez, humanity is a junior member of this federation. You have been granted the privilege of membership, the protection of our laws, access to our trade routes. In return, you must accept the decisions of this council. That is how civilization functions. Protection. Elena wanted to laugh. What protection had New Dawn received? She looked around the hall. Dozens of species watched her with varying degrees of pity, annoyance, or indifference. Not one showed anger at what had happened. Not one demanded justice. They had all calculated the same equation. Humans were weak. Humans were unimportant. The Crithian Empire was strong. It was better to keep the Crithians happy than to defend a species that could not defend itself. We reject your decision, Elena said. We reject your compensation. And we reject the idea that might makes right. Then you reject the Federation itself, High Chancellor Vren said. Choose your next words carefully, Ambassador. Elena thought of her niece, Maria, who had lived on New Dawn. She had been 6 years old. She had wanted to be a doctor when she grew up. She had sent a drawing 2 weeks before the attack, a picture of herself in a white coat helping alien patients. That drawing was the only thing left of her now. Humanity has spent 75 years trying to fit into your civilization, Elena said. We have followed your rules. We have accepted your trade terms, even when they exploited us. We have allowed your inspectors to examine our worlds. We have been patient. We have been peaceful. We have done everything you asked. She looked at each council member in turn. And you have learned nothing about us. You think we are weak because we choose peace. You think we are helpless because we smile and bow. You have mistaken patience for cowardice. Enough, High Chancellor Vren said. Accept our terms or face the consequences. We accept nothing, Elena said. The Galactic Federation has shown that it will not protect human lives. Therefore, humanity will protect itself. The hall erupted in confused chatter. Representative Morn leaned forward. What are you saying, Ambassador? Elena spoke clearly, making sure every recording device captured her words. As of this moment, humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Federation. Furthermore, the United Terran government declares a state of war exists between humanity and the Crithian Empire. For 3 seconds, there was absolute silence. Then the laughter began. It started with a few scattered chuckles and grew into a wave of genuine amusement that filled the massive hall. High Chancellor Vren laughed so hard his scales rattled. The tentacled forms of the traitors' consortium writhed with mirth. You declare war. Vren managed to say through his laughter. You. Humanity controls 18 colony worlds and perhaps 300 military vessels. The Crithian Empire commands 2,000 star systems and a fleet of 15,000 warships. Your entire species numbers barely 20 billion. We have conquered civilizations 10 times your size. This is suicide, said Scholar Prime Kalen, though even the crystalline being seemed amused. We understand you are angry, Ambassador, but this declaration is meaningless. You cannot fight us. You can barely defend your own trade routes from pirates. Elena waited for the laughter to die down. When she spoke again, her voice was cold. We know our numbers. We know yours. We know we cannot win a conventional war. But you have made one critical mistake. You think you understand humanity. You do not. Then enlighten us, High Chancellor Vren said, still smiling. What do we not understand? You have never asked why humanity survived on Earth, Elena said. Our world is a death trap. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, ice ages, asteroid impacts, plagues. 9/10 of every species that ever lived on our planet went extinct. But humans survived. We survived because we are stubborn. We survived because we adapt. We survived because when something tries to kill us, we figure out how to kill it back. She leaned forward. You have given us something we have never had before. A common enemy. Every human alive knows what happened to New Dawn. Every child has seen the footage. Every parent understands that you consider our lives worthless. You have united us in a way nothing else ever could. Unity will not save you from our fleets, High Chancellor Vren said. The amusement was fading from his voice now. Perhaps not, Elena agreed. But consider this. Humans have been members of the Federation for 75 years. In all that time, you have inspected our colonies. You have examined our ships. You have monitored our technology. But you have never looked at Earth itself. You have never bothered to study our home world or our history because you decided we were not important enough to understand. She smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. That was your mistake. You should have studied our history. You should have learned what humans do when pushed too far. You should have asked yourselves why a species that fought itself for 10,000 years suddenly became so peaceful when we reached the stars. Are you threatening us? Scholar Prime Kalen asked. I am warning you, Elena said. Humanity did not join the Federation because we were weak. We joined because we wanted to be better than what we were. We looked at our own history and were horrified. We built weapons that could destroy our entire world. We waged wars that killed millions. We did things to each other that would make you weep if you understood them. And we decided to stop. We decided to be civilized. She looked around the hall one more time. But civilization is a choice. And you have just taught us that in this galaxy, civilization is a joke. The strong do what they want. The weak suffer. That is your law. So we will follow your law. We will show you what humanity looks like when we stop trying to be civilized and start trying to survive. Elena turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the laughter had died completely. The hall was silent now, filled with beings who were beginning to feel the first touch of something they had not felt in millennia. Uncertainty. Ambassador Vasquez, High Chancellor Vren called out. You are making a mistake you cannot take back. Elena stopped at the door and looked over her shoulder. We know. But it is your mistake, not ours. You killed our children and laughed about it. Now you will learn why that was a very bad idea. She left. The door sealed behind her with a hollow boom. In the hall, the representatives of 100 species sat in confused silence. They looked at each other, trying to understand what had just happened. Surely the humans could not be serious. Surely they understood how outmatched they were. This had to be posturing, an emotional outburst that would fade when reality set in. High Chancellor Vren returned to his seat. He felt vaguely troubled but pushed the feeling aside. Humans were nothing. They would learn their lesson quickly enough. He did not know that 6 days earlier, deep in human space, a signal had been sent to 1,000 hidden locations. Facilities that had been disguised as mining operations, research stations, and agricultural complexes. Facilities that had been built over 7 decades by people who remembered that humanity's peace was a choice, and choices could be changed. The signal was 3 words long. Wake the wolves. And across human space, in hidden shipyards and secret bases, things that should not exist began to power up. Ships built from designs that predated the Federation. Weapons that humanity had sworn never to use again. Soldiers who had trained for a war they hoped would never come. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's declaration of war. Soon, very soon, the laughter would stop. And in its place would come a sound the galaxy had not heard in 8,000 years. The sound of prey that had decided to become predator. The price of underestimation. 6 months had passed since humanity declared war on the Crythian Empire. In those 6 months, the galaxy had learned to stop laughing. General Thax sat in his command chamber aboard the battleship Eternal Glory, staring at reports that made no sense. He was a veteran of 40 campaigns, a warrior who had broken 12 species and claimed 30 worlds for the Crythian Empire. He had never known defeat. Until now. The holographic display showed the current state of the war, and what it showed was impossible. The Crythian Empire had committed 3 full battle fleets to crush humanity. 9,000 warships, the largest military operation in 200 years. Against them stood perhaps 500 human vessels, outdated and outgunned by every measurement that mattered. The humans should have been swept aside in weeks. Instead, 6 months later, the Crythian fleets had lost 1,800 ships. 1,800. More than the Empire had lost in the last 3 centuries combined. Explain this to me again, Thax said to his intelligence officer, a younger Crythian named Vex. How are we losing to these primitives? Vex brought up footage from the Battle of Arcturus Station, fought 3 weeks ago. They do not fight like any species we have encountered, General. Watch. The footage showed a standard Crythian battle formation, ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns designed by military academics over thousands of years. The human fleet approached in what looked like complete chaos, vessels scattered across space with no apparent coordination. Then the battle began. The human ships did not engage the Crythian formation directly. Instead, they broke into small groups of 3 or 4 vessels. Each group targeted a single Crythian ship, overwhelming it with concentrated fire before moving to the next target. When the Crythians adjusted their formation to counter this tactic, the humans changed their approach entirely, using some ships as bait while others ambushed from unexpected angles. They have no doctrine, Vex explained. Or rather, their doctrine is to have no doctrine. Every battle, they try something new. By the time we develop a counter, they have moved on to different tactics. Our battle computers cannot predict their movements because there is no pattern to predict. Thax watched as a damaged human cruiser, clearly dying, turned directly toward a Crythian battleship. He expected it to surrender. Instead, the crew overloaded their reactor and rammed the battleship at full speed. The explosion destroyed both vessels. They do that constantly, Vex said quietly. When their ships are crippled, they turn them into weapons. When their crews are cornered, they fight to the last breath. We took 3 human ships intact last month. The boarding parties found the crews had rigged the entire vessel with explosives. They waited until our soldiers were inside, then detonated everything. 200 of our warriors died. Madness, Thax muttered. Perhaps, Vex said. But effective madness. General, our soldiers are afraid. They know that capturing a human ship might be a trap. They know that wounded humans will still try to kill you. This fear makes them hesitate, and hesitation costs battles. Thax closed his eyes. He remembered standing on the bridge of his ship 6 months ago, watching New Dawn burn. He had felt nothing then. It was just another world, just another conquest. Now he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. What do the other species say? He asked. The Traders Consortium has officially declared neutrality, Vex reported. They claim the war is disrupting commerce and costing them billions of credits daily. Several member species of the Stellar Assembly are calling for peace negotiations. The Vex Unity has withdrawn their support. Only the ancient observers maintain their alliance with us, and even they are questioning the wisdom of this war. Thax stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars burned in the eternal darkness. Somewhere out there, human ships were hunting. They moved in the shadows between systems, striking supply convoys and retreating before reinforcements could arrive. They mined trade routes. They attacked isolated outposts. They made every parsec of space feel dangerous. A communication alert chimed. Thax accepted it, and the face of High Chancellor Vren appeared in the hologram. The Chancellor looked old now, his scales dull, his eyes tired. General Thax, I have new orders for you. Yes, Chancellor. You are to take your fleet directly to Earth. Ignore the human colonies. Ignore their military vessels. Strike at their home world. If we destroy Earth, we destroy their will to fight. Thax felt something cold settle in his stomach. Chancellor, such an attack would kill billions of civilians. The Federation has laws against. The Federation is collapsing, Vren interrupted. Half our member species are in open rebellion. The Traders Consortium has frozen our accounts. Yesterday, 3 of our colony worlds declared independence. The humans have not just attacked us, General. They have shown every oppressed species in the galaxy that we can be beaten. If we do not end this quickly, the Empire itself will fall. Then perhaps we should negotiate, Thax said carefully. Perhaps we should admit that destroying New Dawn was wrong and offer genuine compensation. Vren's eyes flashed with anger. We are the Crithian Empire. We do not apologize to lesser species. We do not negotiate from weakness. You have your orders, General. Attack Earth with everything you have. Make it an example that will echo for 10,000 years. The communication ended. Thax stood alone in his chamber, feeling the weight of what he had been commanded to do. Billions of lives. Most of them civilians who had never fired a shot. Children, families, ordinary people just trying to live. He thought of the footage he had seen from New Dawn. The burning cities, the bodies in the streets. He had caused that. He had been following orders then too, believing it was justified because the law said it was justified. Now he was being ordered to do it again, on a scale 1,000 times larger. For the first time in his 40 years of military service, General Thax questioned whether following orders was the same as doing what was right. Far from the battlefields, in a quiet research facility on the ancient observer's home world, Scholar Prime Kalen made a discovery that would change everything. The crystalline being had spent months studying human history, trying to understand the species that had defied all predictions. What Kalen found in the human archives filled the scholar with something close to horror. Kalen called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. When the members assembled, the scholar activated a historical database pulled directly from Earth's records. I have been studying human history, Kalen began. Specifically, their history of warfare. What I have discovered explains everything about why we are losing this war. It also explains why we must end it immediately. Images appeared in the chamber. Ancient battles fought with primitive weapons. Cities destroyed by weapons called nuclear bombs. Footage of something humans called the World Wars, conflicts that had consumed their entire planet and killed hundreds of millions. Humans have been at war for their entire existence, Kalen explained. They did not develop civilization and then occasionally fight. They fought constantly and occasionally attempted civilization. In their last 1,000 years alone, they fought over 16,000 distinct wars. They developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, then built enough of those weapons to destroy it 100 times over. The council members watched in silence as the footage continued. Trenches filled with dying soldiers. Cities reduced to rubble. Civilians starving in sieges. Weapons that melted flesh, poison gas, biological warfare. But here is what you must understand, Kalen said. Approximately 200 years ago, humanity looked at what they had become and were horrified. They had developed weapons that could end all life on their world. They had fought wars so terrible that entire generations were traumatized. They had done things to each other that I cannot fully describe because our languages lack words for such cruelty. New images appeared, showing humans dismantling weapons, signing peace treaties, establishing global governments. So they stopped, Kalen continued. Not because they were weak, but because they chose to be better. They buried their weapons. They created laws against warfare. They convinced themselves that they could be a peaceful species. When they joined the Federation 75 years ago, they genuinely wanted to be part of a civilized galaxy. Scholar Prime Kalen's crystalline form flickered with what might have been emotion. We took their peaceful nature as weakness. We assumed they had always been this way. We never asked why a species capable of reaching the stars had such limited military capability. The answer is simple. They deliberately limited themselves. They chose not to be the monsters they knew they could be. High Chancellor Vren leaned forward. What is your point, scholar? My point is that we have made them remember what they are, Kalen said. When we destroyed New Dawn, when we laughed at their grief, when we told them their lives had no value, we reminded them that the universe does not reward peace. We reminded them that sometimes, survival requires becoming a monster. The scholar brought up new footage, this time from recent battles. Human soldiers fighting with a ferocity that bordered on insane. Ships ramming enemy vessels. Crews choosing death over surrender. They are not fighting a war of conquest, Kalen said. They are fighting a war of survival. And humans who fight for survival do not count the cost. They do not calculate acceptable losses. They simply do whatever it takes to live, no matter how terrible. I have studied their history. When humans believe their existence is threatened, they will burn worlds, destroy civilizations, and commit acts that would horrify us. Not because they are evil, but because they are desperate. Then we destroy them before they can threaten us further, said Representative Morn of the Stellar Assembly. You cannot, Kalen said flatly. I have run the calculations. Even if we destroy Earth tomorrow, there are 18 human colonies scattered across the galaxy. Those colonies have populations, shipyards, weapons facilities. Destroying Earth will not end humanity. It will only make the survivors more desperate, more willing to do anything for revenge. We will be fighting them for generations, and the longer we fight, the more we teach them to be what they once were. Warriors without mercy. Survivors without conscience. Monsters who will do anything to win. The chamber fell silent. The council members looked at each other, and for the first time, real fear showed on their faces. What do you recommend? High Chancellor Vren asked quietly. Peace, Kalen said. Immediate peace on any terms they demand. Because every day this war continues, humanity becomes more dangerous. Right now, they are still trying to be civilized. They are still following their own laws about protecting civilians and treating prisoners humanely. But if we push them too far, if we attack Earth or commit more atrocities, they will abandon those laws. And when humans abandon civilization, they become something the galaxy has never seen. Something I do not think we can defeat. In the Traders Consortium's central hub, the collective minds were reaching similar conclusions. The war had been a disaster for commerce. Trade routes were unsafe. Insurance costs had increased 500%. Dozens of species were refusing to pay their debts, citing the chaos caused by the conflict. The economy that had funded the galaxy for millennia was teetering on collapse. But worse than the economic damage was what the humans had done to the consortium itself. 3 major trading houses had defected to the human side, bringing with them maps of every secret route, every hidden vault, every corrupt deal the consortium had made over 1,000 years. The humans were using this information to devastating effect, releasing it publicly and watching as species across the galaxy demanded investigations and reforms. The consortium called for an immediate ceasefire. The Stellar Assembly, seeing dozens of its member species in open rebellion, added their voice. The Vex Unity, calculating that continuing the war would destroy more than it preserved, withdrew entirely from the conflict. Only the Crythian Empire remained committed. High Chancellor Vren refused to admit defeat, refused to accept that he had been wrong about humanity. He ordered General Thax to proceed with the attack on Earth, certain that one devastating blow would end everything. General Thax received the order and sat alone in his chamber for 6 hours. He thought about the young Crythian soldiers under his command who would die in this attack. He thought about the billions of humans who would burn. He thought about New Dawn and wondered if this was justice or simply revenge. Finally, he made a decision that would change the course of history. He opened a secure communication channel, one that could not be traced or monitored. He sent a message to the human military command. The message was simple: "This is General Thax of the Crythian Empire. I have been ordered to attack Earth with my full fleet. We will arrive in 72 hours. I am telling you this because I have seen enough death. I do not believe either of our peoples benefit from more slaughter. Please prepare your defenses. And please know that not all Crythians support this war." Then he did something even more shocking. He broadcast a message to his own fleet, to every Crythian soldier under his command. "This is General Thax. I have served the Empire for 40 years. I have fought in 40 campaigns. I have conquered worlds and destroyed species in the name of our glory. But I will not attack Earth. I will not murder billions of civilians because our leaders are too proud to admit a mistake. Any ship that wishes to follow me can do so. We will surrender to the humans and ask for mercy. Those who wish to continue following High Chancellor Vren's orders are free to do so. But I will not lead you to commit genocide." 700 ships followed him. Nearly half his fleet. They surrendered to the human forces at the edge of the solar system, the largest military defection in galactic history. The remaining ships, led by officers still loyal to the Empire, continued toward Earth. They found the human home world defended by not just military vessels, but thousands of civilian ships. Cargo haulers fitted with weapons. Passenger liners turned into boarding craft. Mining vessels loaded with explosives. Every human who could reach a ship had come to defend their home. The Battle of Earth lasted 6 hours. The Crythians had superior ships and better weapons, but the humans had something more powerful. They were fighting for their home, their families, their species' survival. They fought with desperate creativity, using tactics no military academy had ever conceived. They rammed ships, detonated asteroids filled with nuclear weapons, hacked enemy systems, and turned Earth's orbital platforms into massive guns. When it was over, the Crythian attack force was destroyed. Not one ship escaped. The humans had won, but at terrible cost. 2 million defenders had died. Earth's orbital infrastructure was shattered. But humanity had survived. High Chancellor Vren watched the footage from Crythia, his home world. He saw his empire crumbling, his people questioning his leadership, his allies abandoning him. He had begun this war to demonstrate Crythian power. Instead, he had demonstrated Crythian fallibility. He had shown the galaxy that even the mightiest could fall. In desperation, he called for peace negotiations. The message was sent to the human government with a simple request: "Tell us your terms." The response came from Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the woman who had stood in the Grand Assembly Hall 6 months ago and declared war while the galaxy laughed. "Our terms are simple," she said. Her face showed the exhaustion of 6 months of war, but her voice was steady. 1. The Crythian Empire will acknowledge that the destruction of New Dawn was an unjustified act of murder. 2. Full reparations will be paid to the families of every victim. 3. All Crythian forces will withdraw from human space immediately. 4. The Galactic Federation will be reformed with new laws protecting minor species from exploitation. 5. Any species that attacks civilian populations will face collective action from all member species. And 6. Humanity will have a permanent seat on the Galactic Council with full voting rights. She paused. These terms are not negotiable. Accept them, or we continue the war. And believe me, Chancellor, we can fight for a very long time. We have had 6 months to remember who we are. If you make us fight longer, we will remember even more. High Chancellor Vren looked at the terms. They were harsh, humiliating, everything he had spent his life fighting against. But he looked at his dying empire, his frightened people, his broken fleets. He thought about General Thax, a loyal soldier driven to defection by moral conscience. He thought about the 800,000 humans he had murdered so casually, never imagining there would be consequences. We accept, he said. The war was over. Humanity had won. Not through superior technology or greater numbers, but through determination, creativity, and a willingness to sacrifice everything for survival. The galaxy learned its lesson. In the years that followed, the Federation was reformed. Laws were passed protecting smaller species. Trade became more fair. Military action against civilians became illegal with real enforcement. And humanity took its place among the galactic powers, not as junior members or harmless neighbors, but as equals who had earned respect through blood and fire. They had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten over 8,000 years of peace. Sometimes, the quiet ones are quiet because they choose to be. And if you force them to stop choosing peace, you might discover they know a great deal about war. More than you ever wanted to learn. The wolves had been awakened. And the galaxy would never forget the price of that mistake.